Imagine how quickly that criminal would have stopped criminalizing. Imagine, because it would have happened, and it has happened. Just read about Texas. Let's go down to Texas a little bit and look how they handle things. God bless Texas. Because, when some of these things are tried, even in Colorado, there's examples of this. That firearm used in a responsible manner to end a criminal's actions, it ends it very fast, and people are protected and lives are saved.
Representative Holtorf, your 10 minutes have expired.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem, for your leadership in guiding us in this very difficult conversation.
Assistant Majority Leader Bacon.
Thank you, members. And thank you for those of you who are listening. Every once in a while, when we hear from our colleagues, we think we should at least get a few words in there just to be sure folks know that not everybody agrees on things. Sometimes we get up to speak to let people know our convictions about particular talking points. And even though, we want to be sure that we can allow folks to debate healthily, there needs sometimes for one person to just get up and say, not always, not exactly, not today. So I hope to be that just for a little bit. I'm not entirely sure if we're debating this bill, because I think we're talking about, kind of like culture and mindset. And so I want to share with you why many of us are supporting this bill, why I am supporting this bill, by responding to some of the things that we've heard this morning. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, I'm going to take a little latitude in responding to what I heard today. I heard some talk about what people need to do
What's going on, my brother? Damon,
mitigate anxiety. This is a nice way of putting
this
it.
is just a hangout.
And particularly talking about bloodlines.
I'm paying attention to
and
it.
I'm not entirely sure who someone was speaking for.
Figured we'd shoot the breeze for a little while.
Because certainly there's a lot of people that I know who have been targeted because of their bloodlines didn't necessarily ask for that to be the solution that be proposed today.
Anyway,
and quite frankly,
good, man.
I personally found it to be out of line. I think for me to make statements like that, even within my own culture, takes an incredible amount of hubris.
I wanted to hear this.
As someone who comes from, unfortunately, a legacy of people having been targeted for their bloodline, and when we're talking about the culture that I think we've been debating around this bill,
Colorado is trying to push this sensitive.
I also just want to recognize that it is a conscious choice to not engage with violence.
And you got to hear.
We have also talked about in this space what it means to feel safe. And I do think that if you ask any group of people who have either been colonized or put in a caste system, you're not the only people who got an issue with trusting government. However, our most impressive cases to change culture have been with conscious decisions not to shoot back or to have bullets flying both ways. And quite frankly, to hear, and I'm just quoting, that the only way to solve violence is with violence, and quite frankly, to hear, to me, my mother, Fannie Lou Hamer, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, don't even get me started about any apartheid culture, including in South Africa. And I said it because my culture had to figure out, how do we put humanity first, which is what we were fighting for, before we ask our questions of how do we respond to the violence that was pursued against us as a matter of government to tell us.
Okay, couple quick points. One, lady, when it comes to someone who wants to commit a mass shooting and they're just coming in trying to stack innocent bodies, the only thing that stops them is violence. Not hugs, not safe spaces, not good wishes. They don't just stop because they get tired. Second point, it would have been a whole lot harder to make people slaves if they were armed. Just saying.
The only solution is to shoot back. Let's just be honest of what would have happened if slaves had guns.
They would have been
Let's
a whole lot
just
harder
be
to make
honest,
slaves.
because we've talked about the Panthers in here. This is the culture problem. It is not a Denver problem. It is the problem recognizing that some people who have the authority to make laws believe the only way to deal with violence is with violence. Then think about the rest of the world and not just a college campus, which people expressed their First Amendment right to assemble and speak with no weapons. So this bill is about culture change. It makes me worry about people who believe that the only way to
Well, give me a
put
minute, I'll
this
be right
down
back.
is with violence, and then simultaneously would not recognize how many people are oppressed today because of that mindset. They don't speak for me. I'm not sure who they speak for. I don't remember saying, please go down there and talk about how to defend yourself or certain people of a bloodline. So when I think about, too, how people are talking about this space, it makes me worry and it makes me feel unsafe that there are people who believe they need a gun in this space. And as many times I have been in committee, I am a legislator. I have had no shortage of death threats because of what people say in here. But when people say to me,
Yeah.
you have
Taco,
metal detectors
thought that too.
don't stop guns in this space. And I am wholly concerned about how people expect me to listen to what I heard today and come in here and vote. I hope you hear what people are saying as I try to deliberate on how I'm going to make a decision. And so when we are talking about sensitive spaces, this place is one. But I know I would not be here if the only response to violence was violence. I know that. I know what it means to protest. I know what it means to sit in. I know what it means to have milkshakes poured over your head. And that didn't stop in the 60s. And you know what? We shall overcome. It is not the only way. And I question the way people think about that.
I'll tell you in a minute. There will be no outbursts from the room. I am watching this carefully. I'm trying my very best to uphold the standards the same to speakers on both sides of the aisle. Representative Bacon, you may proceed.
Yeah, sure.
I heard a quote, and that is what I am responding to. That is what I'm responding to. And I'm responding to how I feel about it and what it makes me think about and what it is that we are trying to change by way of culture. I heard 5 people say culture. So I am talking about culture. I heard people talking about how you respond to violence. So I am talking about how people have responded to violence by walking over a bridge and sitting down and waiting for dogs and hoses. So I am talking about it. If we're going to talk about culture change, that's what I believe this bill does.
Dude, this lady
It
is
changes
all
the
think and
mindset
feel,
that
man.
violence doesn't need to be met with violence. If that is the argument that was made, and it was.
All think and feel.
And so I don't want us to believe that we are fraught for trying to say we should be able to vote without having to think about people who think like that. It scares me. And I will take my legislative authority to change the culture, to recognize places need to be less tense with weapons. And I am testifying today that it is true. It is true that when I know people in rooms have guns, it changes the way I behave. But I do it anyway, and I will get another death threat today. Bet. So when we are saying sensitive spaces, we need to give people the ability to be free and without fear. And there are ways to change the world, because all of us are here as examples of that without having to resort it.
Examples of the lowest common denominator,
So
lady.
I will use my voice to respond. And I do have a First Amendment right to do so. And again, when people speak, just ask who they are speaking for. Because I don't remember needing help that way. I can speak for myself. And so can many of you, and you have. So thank you for listening today. I am happy to yield the rest of my time and respond if I need to.
We're going to take a quick recess.
Well, now that that utter nonsense is over with, let me get a little bit more current on this.
You leave this building, you walk across the street late at night. We've all been here many, many times debating late into the evening.
A couple people are
The next deranged individual who is angry at the world from looking to take out his rage on innocent and unarmed victims. And we're seeing it across college campuses. We are facilitating an environment of hate and hostility. And now we are going to take guns away from the people that we're facilitating hate towards. The claim that more guns on campus will lead to accidental
we'll listen to
shootings
her
or
for that.
shootings of opportunity is without merit. Today, the states of Colorado, Idaho, and Utah have laws in the books allowing concealed carry on campus by students who have applied for and received permit and passed a background check. And no incidents in those 3 states where we have allowed these students to carry have happened. So come to me. The bill sponsor should come to me and say, in these 3 states, we have had mass shootings because we have allowed kids to carry on college campuses, but not one, not a single incident in the 3 states where we have allowed college students to pass a background check and receive a permit to carry.
It doesn't happen.
So again, what's the bill for? Tell me 48 mass shootings have happened in Colorado, Idaho, and Utah because we've allowed kids to carry guns, but nope, zero incidents have happened. But we are going to legislate against these students who have gone on to get a permit and a background check because we know better in this body. We know better. And let's look at the evidence. In Colorado, we have over 650,000 concealed carry permits in Colorado. 15% of the total population here own a gun. 1 in 9 have a concealed carry permit. If we had a problem, guess how many mass shootings would happen if law-abiding citizens were doing the mass shootings? We'd have a freaking epidemic. We'd have mass shootings every day. And you know why we don't? Because 650,000 people aren't freaking mass shooting. They're the ones protecting all of us from the mass shooters. And our response
This
is
was
to
just one
take
bill
away
today.
their
There was
ability
another bill
to
before this
protect
one.
us. If law-abiding citizens were doing this in 1 in 9, we would have a shooting every single day, multiple times a day in the state of Colorado. But we don't. We don't have that problem. And instead, we're going to create a problem because that's what we do.
And I'll probably
And we don't have
back
a
it up.
solution, like I said.
Just show
I
a little
said,
bit about the other
If you're going
bills
to strip the
too.
guns, at least have adequate schools. Let's take school funding away from schools. Let's not require security measures, but let's strip Second Amendment rights from people.
Sam of Anarchy, what's up, my
Because
brother?
doesn't offer anything. 2007 Virginia Tech shooting is an example of such an event. A jury found the school liable in a civil lawsuit and awarded family members of victims large cash settlements. I'll tell you what, after this goes through, if my kid's involved in a shooting, if something happens in his college in Colorado, I will
I
will
think
get a cash
Colorado
settlement because
does.
I will sue.
Maybe Colorado,
sue.
Utah. I'd have to go look.
The judge instructed the jury that a special
I
relationship
believe
did
Colorado
exist
does
between
now.
university
This bill
officials
would
and the
stop
victims,
that.
and that the bond required officials
This bill would
to
make
provide
colleges
for their
sensitive
safety and
places.
security. And the bill sponsors got rid of my amendment. I just said have adequate security.
Yeah,
If
I
you're
feel
gonna
that,
strip
Sam.
Second Amendment rights, at least have adequate security. And they said no. The jury found that Virginia Tech's actions contributed to the deaths of the students. And with what's going on across college campuses, we will see more. We will see more shootings. And the only thing that will change is that we won't have anyone be able to defend against the shooter that will be the only one with the gun.
Now you're just making sense.
The weapons themselves are not evil, but rather is the actions of criminals that are evil. We can trust the citizens of Colorado and should not limit their freedoms based on the illegal activities of a few, but we continue to do it. Bill after bill after bill. Local control starts with our citizens by protecting their constitutionally guaranteed individual liberties. Colorado license holders are not a threat to our security. Again, 650,000 out of 6 million people own guns, concealed carry permits, and they are not going around shooting up schools and college campuses. We should not tread on their rights while at the same time taking no steps to prevent criminals from bringing illegal guns into public buildings. Good Coloradans with guns make all Coloradans safer.
I still got to look at what
And we
happened
told you, I
Friday.
heard violence does not beget violence, but I will tell you 3 million people that have pulled a gun have stopped a crime. They weren't being violent. They just brandished their gun and the crime stopped. 3 million people, 400,000 violent attacks have stopped just by brandishing a gun. That's not violence begetting violence. That is, I'm going to protect myself. And if you come any further, problems are going to happen.
Come any further, you're
I
going to
don't
be
understand
leaking.
it. I don't understand this bill. There's no evidence, and we just continue to strip Second Amendment rights, and college campus shootings will increase. Prohibiting firearms in certain places will do nothing to prevent gun violence. All this bill will result in is disarming law-abiding citizens. It will not prevent bad people
Representative Bradley, you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. From doing bad things. Criminals are criminals for a reason. They don't care about the law. They're not going to see this bill signed into law and suddenly think they can't perform an act of gun violence in a space where guns are prohibited. There's no force field put in place with this law. Attacks on our Second Amendment rights create more victims, as evident by the history of shootings in gun-free zones, yet you continue to go after our rights, and I promise you, the people in my district will continue to fight you on this. Please say no to this horrific legislation. Thank you.
Colorado is going
Representative Catlin.
hard right now. Let me back this up a little bit, because I think this bill was up for third reading today. Yeah, this is it.
Not the
So-
law-abiding.
This is a bill which purports to allow the Colorado, their FBI, to go in and investigate any sort of gun crime or someone trying to get a gun, something like that. And we've looked at bills nationally where it was, I think it is now, where if you are denied on a 4473, then you are reported to the ATF or FBI, whichever one it was, and they're supposed to investigate, which would be great if it wasn't for the fact that like 99% of their denials are false positives. So then it just becomes a harassment bill at that point. Part of this bill, let's see, let me pull this up, because they talked about this Friday. Now it's up today for the third reading. Let's see, where's that? So bill description, bill authorizes Colorado Bureau of Investigations to investigate a little illegal activity. I'm going to learn to talk one day involving firearms statewide. The bill appropriates $1,600,090 to the Department of Public Safety and the Bureau. Let's see, where's it at? This is where it gets into the intent. It's the intent of the General Assembly to investigating egregious attempts to purchase firearms by previously convicted felons who are identified through instant background check and denial. Okay, like I said, I'm gonna learn to talk one day, I promise. Which, like I said, would be great, but I'm pretty sure even if Colorado has its own background check on top of the Fed, that all their shit's just as bad as the Fed. So to investigate unlawful activity involving illegal firearms, components, and accessories. That's a lot of what this bill is about. This is about a lot of investigations for someone ordering gun parts, and then the Bureau of Investigations gets involved and then starts basically running people through the ringer. So unlawful activity involving illegal firearms and components and accessories. Tips and information relating to firearms violations as they are received, specifically focusing on straw purchases and personally manufactured firearms. That is a big chunk of what they want to go after in this is ghost guns, like the one I'm carrying right now. So that's where this entire horseshit show is going with him. Let me make sure I share the right tab again. So this was just earlier today. This was before they got to the sensitive places bill.
Seeing no further discussion, Representative Luck.
Oh yeah, it was way worse than a couple other parts, Barton. Way worse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I ask for a third reading amendment. No hissing. Man.
How dare you try to
Please
amend our gun
explain
bill?
your request, Representative Luck.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Hey, G, what's up, brother?
On Friday, there was a bit of confusion around an amendment that the representative from Delta introduced related to qualified immunity. If you've been here for any length of time, or if you've monitored what has happened in the law enforcement space, especially in 2020 and 2021, you know that there's been conversation around qualified immunity and making sure that our citizens have the ability
qualified
to access
immunity should
the
go.
courts in the event that their constitutional rights are infringed upon. There was some confusion as to whether those actions actually covered CBI investigators, and in fact, it doesn't. And so I would like a third reading amendment in order to clarify that, in fact, CBI investigators are truly to be subject to the same standards as all other law enforcement officers.
As you'd have it, AG. Yes,
And,
they are right now.
Provide some statute. So, for instance, in the original section, section 1321,
But this is about protecting them,
it
not
talks about that a peace
doing
officer that
anything
is
else.
covered by this is described by section 2431-9013. In that section, it says that any person required to be post-certified is encapsulated. And it lists another section, section 16-2.5-102. If you look at that particular list, it is not included. CBI is not included in that list, and it's an extensive list. I think it misses no peace officer other than maybe a dog catcher. In addition, in the section 16-2.5-113, where the CBI peace officer is actually categorized in statute, it says that a CBI peace officer may be post-certified. It's not a requirement. Therefore, this qualified immunity piece does not encapsulate these CBI officials. I think that we should clear that up. I think we should make sure that all of our law enforcement is held to the same standard. And so I ask for permission. Thank you.
Representative Froelich.
I have to read
Thank
into that a little
you
bit more.
very
but
much, and thank you to the representative.
where
and
that's
thank you
actually
for the
going.
discussion about this previously, and we're going to ask for a no on permission. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is permission for a third reading amendment. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine, and members, please proceed to vote. Representative Soper, how do you vote?
Try.
Not being able to support it comes first from an analysis of the necessity of the bill. I'm not persuaded fully by some of the arguments that I've heard around INSA check alone, but I do agree, uncomfortably agree with a colleague who spoke earlier,
What's
who
up, brother?
suggested that essentially we're just assigning more resources to a different division of law enforcement to do additional work without an ability to tell us about net safety gains. I
Could be, Bart.
spoke at length with a representative from the Department of Safety, very capable and able young person who was able to explain this bill from their perspective. What was concerning is that in all of our conversations, our own Department of Safety could not articulate at all how to draw a line
They don't
between
care
this
about that
bill
shit,
and
man.
safety. And I asked for examples such as, right, is the idea that if
These
we investigate
anti-gun
enough
assholes
of these
want more
issues
victims.
around transactions, that there's some finite amount of bad actors and we can identify them, incarcerate them, or otherwise incapacitate them, and then they're out of the business of doing bad work? Is the idea that those spots won't be backfilled? Is the idea that we will investigate and send a message, rather, right, to bad actors?
Yeah,
And
AG,
it's
that's exactly
concerning
what it's saying.
when asking for, I think it's 1.6, it wound up being $1 million to be allocated to law enforcement. It should be really alarming, actually, not just concerning,
Well, I got
if we
clothes all
can't articulate how does that investment keep us safer, or how would it keep us safer? In addition to that, and I guess actually it kind of runs, it just runs right with it. You know, we've read The New Jim Crow. We can quote Michelle Alexander. We understand we have this system of mass incarceration, and here's a bill where we
See what? It's funny with her being against this bill. She's against it because she thinks it might actually, I don't know, harm some criminals. Not how it's going to work. Chris, what's up, brother? It's so she's going at it from an over incarceration standpoint, which I don't give a damn how she comes about it. As long as she's against it, I really don't care how she gets there. But this bill, like we read just up there in the top of the text, that's the most important things to it. Going after gun parts, accessories, ghost guns. You know, it's already illegal to straw purchase a gun for somebody. It's already illegal to sell a gun to a felon and all this other shit. This bill is going after people, or going to allow the Bureau to go after people who are just manufacturing their own firearms. So it's another, you know, like we always say, gun control is about control. It's not about safety. And that's exactly what this bill is about.
We have sponsors who care deeply about racial justice, and supporters of the bill who care about it as well. But we have to interrogate, how do we get those bricks?
Oh, notice she's got the Palestinian flag on her computer.
That build those walls of mass incarceration. It's by continuing to allocate resources to a thing or a system or a part of a system that has proven itself to be woefully incapable or unwilling to do that thing. A premise on which this bill was based that bothers me deeply, and I haven't heard much conversation about it, that doesn't suggest that others haven't thought about it, but maybe aren't as troubled, is proponents of the bill have told me directly that they're concerned about law enforcement actors in the state of Colorado who will not investigate certain offenses, even when it's hard to demonstrate that they don't have the resources to do so, who will not follow certain laws. We can't continue to allocate massive amounts of funding to one segment of law enforcement because we think the other actors in law enforcement aren't following the law. That's just an unacceptable trade-off for me.
Yeah, I don't care how she
And
gets
the
to the
mention
point.
of the new Jim Crow is just to reflect that If we have sheriffs,
Yeah, like I said, I really don't care how she gets to the point where she's against this bill. If she's against it, hey, more power to her. Um, it actually surprises me because I'm willing to bet this lady is not conservative. Surprises me she's against it, but I really don't care how she gets it. It's another bullshit bill. It's another bill Democrats in Colorado are pushing right now, simply just to crack down on any sort of gun ownership. And they are, man, they are riding the wheels off this wagon right now. Later on today, once I've got to leave in a little bit, I got to pick up my daughter. I just want to hang out for a few. But I got to leave in a little bit, pick up my daughter, pick up my son. Then when I get back, I'll probably start with the stuff from Friday and roll through that because there were a couple of bills, I think, right there in the House Friday that they were going through. That again are just absolute horseshit bills. And it's just more and more of this encroachment on everybody's rights. And it's all it amounts to. None of this is going to keep Colorado safe. None of this is going to make Colorado any safer. It's going to make people a hell of a lot more defenseless. And there's some more shit coming up in Pennsylvania too. There's a few states right now, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Minnesota, that are really active pushing gun control hard right now. And unfortunately, in a lot of these states, their legislatures basically have supermajority Democrats and Democrat governors, and they're just shoving it through. It's the only reason I didn't mention Virginia there, because Virginia basically has a Republican governor, a Democrat House, Democrat Senate, and he was able to veto a bunch of bills. So, you know, Virginia's definitely dodged a few bullets. No, it's absolutely racist, man. It always has. I didn't realize just how racist the roots were for gun control until a few years ago. And most of these laws are absolutely racist. Even the import bans for, say, Saturday night specials and a lot of the stuff that was done in the 68 Gun Control Act. It was all about keeping the guns that lower income people could afford, keeping those guns off the street and basically pricing them out of the market. The sheer insanity of some of this shit. And then I still got to do some stuff on our buddy Alvin Bragg out of New York. It's a really damn busy time for gun control. And there was a small bill in Alabama that passed the other day, kind of a safe storage law. I still got to get into. And it's amazing that one passed, but what can I say? I think it was one of those they were just going to let them have a little bit of something.
who won't follow the law, that's something to be dealt with in an entirely different way. It's not a justification to give resources to a different
Yeah, he absolutely was, AG.
that further entrenches our reliance on these systems. I'll end by noting how significant it was for me, the conversation.
Mike McClune, what's up, my brother?
You have to be able to articulate, if it is a safety-related bill and a gun violence prevention-related bill, you know, these bills aren't a package, despite what some folks would say. You have to be able to articulate, how does doing this, if it works ideally, how would it keep us safer? And they can't. And
no
so
gun control can articulate that.
Right? Voting no on this bill for me is no reflection that I'm okay with the behavior of certain bad actors, but it's that if certain folks in law enforcement aren't following the law, it's not an appropriate use of resources to align however many millions of dollars to another division to do it. It is incumbent upon us.
Yeah. The Democrats and facts don't have a real good relationship.
Don't double down on the carceral work that increases our reliance on systems that don't keep us safe instead of investing in that which which does. I hope that a few of us taking the time to articulate this tension will encourage folks who are in the department and who are going to be stewards of these resources to expect that folks are going to ask every year, did it work? Are we safer? Do we have less guns out there? This is a bill that falls under the category of, I really, really am rooting against myself. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this investment does keep us safer. I haven't heard the department be able to articulate how it will, and for those reasons, I'll be a no.
Because it's not going to keep anybody safer.
Representative Luck.
Yeah, I would like to see Coley
Thank you,
on
Mr.
crash
Speaker
that
Pro
too.
Tem. I appreciate the prior speaker's willingness to put on record one of the perceived motivations for this bill, which is to do what certain law enforcement at local levels has decided not to do. There are a number of counties, for those who are not aware, both here in the chamber and those listening elsewhere who
Oh,
will
this
see
is
this
juicy.
at
Yeah.
some other time in the future, that have declared themselves to be sanctuaries for the Second Amendment, that have said, we take our oath seriously, and our oath we understand to mean.
So that's a good point. I didn't hear that earlier. So of course they're trying to push all this off to basically the Colorado Bureau of Investigations instead of leaving this to the counties themselves. Because there are a bunch of counties in Colorado where the sheriffs have said, we are not doing this shit. We're not pushing, we're not enforcing your anti-gun, unconstitutional horse shit. So that's another good point, because this will turn it into where a state agency will be investigating all this, and it won't matter what the sheriffs do. So again, they will do anything to push their absolute horseshit agenda, even when constitutional officers, sheriffs, people who are elected, say that no, we're not doing this. That's mighty nice of them, you think? That's funny as hell. Oh boy, boy, boy.
The protection of one's ability to protect themselves through a variety of arms, bearing a variety of arms. And there have been laws promulgated from this building over the last decade, one particular in 2013, that provoked much ire within communities across.
Oh shit, Mike, man, I hope you get feeling better soon, brother. Hopefully you ain't coming down with nothing. Or were you just sick of work? Been there before.
Across the state, especially rural communities. And sheriffs and law enforcement agencies in those local communities have said, we are not going to enforce this. Not because we do not honor the law, not because we don't respect the law, but because we understand the hierarchy of law. We understand that constitutional law supersedes state statute. And these laws that are coming out of Denver under that gold dome are in violation of that higher law, and are even in violation of the higher law, which is the natural law, the unalienable right to protect oneself, those around them, and one's property. And so the crux, I think, for many related to this bill is the recognition that this bill will, whether intended by the bill sponsors or not, seek to infringe upon that jurisdictional territory of those sheriffs who said, this area, this county, this city, this community is going to uphold the Constitution as written, as understood in 1791, as understood by means of enabling people to protect themselves, despite what some in Denver believe otherwise. That is a valid conflict to be worked out, to be hashed out. It's unfortunate that instead of working that out, instead of again recognizing the differences of perspective and lifestyle and culture across this beautiful state, this body seeks to impose, to control, to say, how dare you, to the local officials who believe themselves to be honoring the oath that they took. For that and many other reasons, I'll be a no.
Yeah, that's a good point, brother. And we see a lot of that, especially if you're on X or other things in social media, where you see people talk about the Bill of Rights or something, Constitution, and they're talking about, well, the government gave you these rights, and that's not the way that shit worked. We had the rights. Those documents limit the government's authority or power to be able to take those rights or change those rights or manipulate those rights. Yeah, people they don't understand how that shit works. Where we do have natural rights. We do have natural right self-defense. We have a natural right to use whatever tools we see fit for that self-defense. Most states have protections for the ownership of arms in their constitution. Just like the case up in New York with Dexter Taylor. The judge said, the Second Amendment doesn't exist in her courtroom. Okay, look at the state constitution then, you bitch, because it says in the state constitution damn near verbatim what the Second Amendment says. So whether or not you like guns, whether or not you like the fact this dude built guns, eat a bag of dicks. Your feelings, every time we get into this freaking thing with these gun control idiots, it's always feelings. Your feelings don't freaking matter. What matters is people's rights. And we live in a republic, used to anyway, to where just because a majority of people didn't like something, that they could strip you of your rights. 60% of people didn't like something, the other 40% can just lose all their shit. The way our government was supposed to be designed, it wouldn't work that way. It wouldn't matter whether 90% of the people didn't like something. Unless they could force through a constitutional amendment, no way for them to touch it. Now we're overrun with fucking straight out NPCs who do not value rights, who do not value freedoms. And as long as they can get enough people on their squad, they feel like they can just strip you of everything. And that's the insanity of the time we've lived in for a long time. I mean, the fact that the 1934 NFA is still law is mind-blowing when you actually break that thing down. Toy Town, what's up, man? How you and the kiddos doing? I got about another 30 minutes. Let's listen to some more horse shit.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before.
Move Senate Bill 131 on third
Okay,
reading
this is
and
where they
final
started
passage.
the initial discussion on the
Representative
sensitive places. Let's see where they're at right now. Let's liven it up and see. All right, so then swapped up to another bill now.
Are you more afraid of someone who could help
This guy was pretty good
There was
earlier.
problems. These folks were trained. They knew what to do and how. The same thing is true with this bill. We tried to put an amendment on that a retired police officer was not subject to this bill. It was turned down.
Look, any of these people, and this is an argument I've had on X and recently. Anybody who thinks that merely taking firearms away is going to stop violent people from committing violent acts is a moron. And all they have to do is go look at any kind of statistics from the violence that happens in prisons where there are no firearms, yet there probably are firearms, where people make all sorts of makeshift weapons, or they just use overwhelming force to do what they want to do. It's still rapes, it's still robberies, it's still murders, you name it. So if you think, oh, the firearm, we're just going to take these bang bang things away and all of a sudden everything's going to be all rainbows and sunshine, you're an idiot. What you will do is make the criminals more powerful. One, because they're not going to turn in their damn guns. And they will get more. If you can't stop people from backpacking pounds and pounds and pounds of drugs across the border, what's going to stop them from loading up a bunch of Glock parts and backpacking that shit across the border? And then again, machine guns are supposed to be heavily regulated. I can sit in town on a damn Friday night and I can hear machine guns go off. I know good and damn well those aren't transferables. So this entire narrative that the left pushes on this shit is ridiculous. For those of you who haven't heard me say, I teach at a college. This comes up about teachers being armed, the bill that Tennessee just voted on. And these morons are running around talking about, oh, it's going to make students unsafe and teachers are going to be shooting students. One, we already know you can't get the guns off the street. It's not going to happen. You already know that there are violent people out there and some very sick people out there who wish to inflict their pain and suffering on others who go into schools and commit shootings. If that ever happens, I want something in my hand better than an improvised weapon or a fucking stapler. I want my hole puncher. Teachers aren't going to be Rambo. We carry in every other aspect of our life. Anybody who's in a classroom, especially these days, it at least has some sense of how things would work if they were ever in a lockdown. It's been a while since we've been through one. Last one I watched was a complete shit show. But I've got a couple of different options with my guys, depending on where a shooter's at. Get my guys out of my building and get my guys moving in another direction. Or strong point in area. Get my guys tucked back into an area where they're behind me. And if anything comes through that door that isn't a cop, gets shot in the face. And they get shot in the face a lot. I talked about it some a little while back. We were in this meeting for there's a bunch of stuff involved in the meeting. One part of it was this run, hide, fight idea. And in that video, it shows people, running away from the shooter, hiding from the shooter. And then if they went to fight, they were grabbing all sorts of random objects off their desk. Surge protectors, staplers, all this other horse shit to stop this wannabe mass shooter. Why not just let teachers who want to carry? If they're not responsible enough to handle a gun, why the hell are they teaching your children in the first damn place? Now, I realize there are very smart people out there who have no walking around sense whatsoever. That being said, they're more than likely not the ones who are going to want to carry. If they're not carrying in the rest of their daily life, that's probably not where they're going to suddenly just start to want to carry. So just let us do our thing. If a teacher's carrying, EDCing like we always do, concealed carry, students won't even be aware of it. It's not out in their face. They'll probably never know who's carrying. And then arguments come up about, well, hey, what if a student jumps on staff and they take the staff's gun? They don't know the gun's there. And if you have, actual discipline in your school to where you take attacks on staff seriously, you can typically thin out the herd who would be jumping on staff in the first damn place and do it before there's a serious incident. And then the other one is, well, what if there's a shooting and, teachers are all armed and the cops get there and they see a person with a gun and they just shoot them? Well, that means your cops are fucking idiots. If there's still a defensive situation going on where you've got to have your gun out and actually trying to react to something, then those responding need to have a little bit of fucking sense too. And if a teacher did respond to something, ended up dropping a shooter, once they clear that area, guess what they're going to do? Like anybody else would do in a defensive shooting, they're going to holster back up so they're not standing there with a gun in their hand when the cops show up. Fucking idiots, I swear. Female students, teachers take away from there. Yeah, same man. But you know, and we've talked about it before on here and talked about it on other channels when we've done shows. These people need more defenseless victims. Whether they're pushing gun control, whether they're pushing more just overall control from the government, more spying, you name it. They need more victims. If they were, if this was just about keeping people safe, then they would look at both sides of the scale. Okay, there are so many violent crimes that are committed with, you know, using firearms in a year. Oh God, wait a second. There's like 10 times more crimes stopped with a firearm every year. And then we'd go focus on the criminals. But that's not the way this shit works. They focus on an object and just, you know, screw everybody else. Oh, I'm sorry, 80 something year old grandma who stopped your home intruder because you actually got to your gun that wasn't secured and was loaded. No, fuck you. You've got to store it locked up and your ammo has to be loaded away from it because we want to feel safe. Innocent children getting hurt. We've looked at it before on the channel. What, 200 in a year? There are 10 times, I think it was 4 times, like 4 or 5 times more kids that were killed being exposed to household chemicals than an innocent child being exposed to a firearm. And even that number, because you just put in an unintentional firearms death and then put in the ages, that number of deaths will also include a negligent discharge from an adult. That will include someone shooting into a house and many other things that, you know, yes, they were hit with a projectile and killed, but it wasn't just the kid finding an unsecured gun. Dude, I wish we could get the government out of all of it, but unfortunately, we're at a point where people just keep voting for stupid shit and putting them further and further in our lives. Fluffy Bunny, what's up, my brother? Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, what if the teacher had a bad day and they come in and shoot a student? Do you not think the teacher could do that already? Do you not think if that was going to be an issue? And watching some of these little badass youngins in classrooms that you see on videos, if it hasn't happened now or by now, it's not going to happen. And then they bring up instances of people leaving unsecured guns and going through their numbers. It's all people carrying off body. So purse carry, briefcase carry, and SROs, resource officers who are actually police who leave their guns in the bathroom and shit like that. It's not somebody who is effectively carrying. Anyway, let me turn this on. Let me catch this call because this is one of the calls I'm waiting on.
But those retired police officers and sheriff's officers help us. I hope we never have any of those situations. But it seems like something's stirring our soul. That there are more people that are maybe not getting the treatment they need that end up making headlines and then end up making rules and laws like we're making today. We need more mental health help, believe me. I'm probably tired of me saying that. But those are the kind of things that I'd like to see this kind of effort be put into. I'm not here in this room to try and take away rights from individuals that are exercising them legally. I don't agree with that. I think it'll end up causing us more problems in the future than we've even thought about. If we find more and more places,
What's up, brother
that you and
DB?
I
What's going
go,
on?
and no one can be carrying any kind of a weapon, the person that
Oh yeah,
does
man.
come there now has an extreme
They can't
advantage.
report if
And if we're not
hold
going
on.
to spend the money on putting security in the
numbers that are actually coherent and broken down where you're not throwing oranges in the basket with a ham hock. John Lott Crime Resource Prevention Center. I always get it backwards. But John Lott Jr. is the guy to go look at because he's been breaking these numbers down for decades. One car, what's up, my brother? All right, AG, man, take it easy, brother, man. We'll catch you after a while. And like I said, I'm going to end this one here in just a little bit, and then I got to go pick up kiddos, and then I'll more than likely I'm going to crank another stream up when I get back because there's a few other things I want to hit. There's Alvin Bragg up in New York right now. There was a write-up I run into on X where he's trying to put more pressure on YouTube to remove more gun content. Like they haven't already cracked down on our nuts hard enough already. And this is just another way that the left can kind of move the ball forward. And I mean, eventually just, you wouldn't be able to even talk about a gun on here. It's the insanity of the time we live in, man. And this shit's going to get crazier and crazier before this next election. Yeah, that's another one. Night Strike. What's going on, brother, man? But yeah, they're trying to chop the nuts off of anything. One that is actually, decently conservative or even on the libertarian end of things. Unless you're a hard leftist, they're trying to chop your nuts off at this point. Another reason, like, streaming to Rumble, streaming to X right now, along with streaming to YouTube. So this stream goes out in 3 different places. I'm amazed my channel lasted this long on YouTube in the first damn place, because you guys already know I don't mix a whole lot of words. I tend to say what I want to say for the most part. Are there times I restrain it? Yes, I do. If I had 100 million followers or something, I'd probably, just blow the whole account up. So we'll see. Oh, let me see. We kind of flip past this dude. There was another guy that spoke to.
Who is seeking to commit a violent crime and to use a firearm in the commission of that crime. And that's why you hear from on side of the aisle.
Here we go.
To that why do people buy guns? We always have that chicken or the egg conversation about is our society less safe because more guns, or do people feel less safe and so then they go and they buy a gun? Well, we have the answer.
Hell yeah, Fluff.
In that poll, which said 91% of Americans who purchase a firearm do so because they have worries and they have fears about their own personal safety.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it, Night Strike.
Firearm makes them feel more safe. It gives them the personal responsibility and the tools and the training to be able to keep themselves safe in an
Colorado's going straight New York with this sensitive places horse shit.
Ties back to policies like this piece of legislation. Why would somebody with criminal intent comply with this bill? Why would somebody, after deliberation and with intent to commit a heinous crime, obey a law?
Before
says,
I go,
sorry, you
I
can't
got
bring a
to
gun on
find
college
something.
They've already, after deliberation and with intent, decided to commit a murder. That is the mens rea. That is the mental state. And I see nothing in this particular piece of legislation that would prevent such tragedies from occurring. Rather, I see the opposite effect. We've heard the statistics. I'll mention another one. 85% of mass shootings happen in gun-free zones. I mentioned the court case the last time I was up here, U.S. Supreme Court case, Casarac v. Gonzalez, which says that public safety does not have general liability. They are not generally responsible for all the bad things that happen in society. They're only specifically liable for those things that they know about and can actually do something to stop it. As a cop, I get to make the joke, right? When seconds matter, the police are only minutes away of laws in these sensitive spaces. And I argue legislation like this does not deter someone from criminal intent who, after deliberation,
Before I end this one,
has
I'm
made
going
up
to
their
introduce
mind
you guys
go
to my
commit
new
an act
favorite
of
song.
violence. We had conversations about the quantity of firearms in public. Well, as I mentioned last time I was up here, the county where I live, Weld County, the sheriff has made it as least expensive as possible for law-abiding citizens to be able to get their concealed carry permits. The statutory minimum fee that has to be charged to get a CCW is $52.50. He's worked to lower it to that level. And as a result, in my county, per capita, the number of concealed carry permit holders has doubled. If that made society less safe, I think we would know about it. But actually, top 4 safest cities in Colorado are in Weld County, where the number of concealed carry permit holders has doubled in the last 10 years. We hear conversations about free speech. This piece of
Let me send a
legislation
message out
talks
while I'm
about
thinking
polling
about it.
places being sensitive locations and how the fear of a firearm being present there might stifle someone else's free speech. The problem with that is Supreme Court cases and circuit court cases have found the exact opposite. You have Laird v. Tatum, a 1972 U.S. Supreme Court case, which talks about the perception or a subjective chill. Just because someone is afraid of something doesn't mean that that is a First Amendment infringement on their free speech. If I am afraid of guns, that does not allow me to infringe upon somebody else's lawful and constitutional right to lawfully carry that firearm openly or concealed as permitted by law. That reasoning was reaffirmed in a 2018 circuit court case out of the Fifth Circuit, in which something very similar to what this legislation contemplates occurred. A group of college professors working at a university brought suit and said that allowing concealed firearms on campus and in the classroom might chill the freedom of expression. Unfortunately, or fortunately in my case, because I agree with the ruling said that that would be considered an example of self-censorship. Again, just because somebody is afraid of firearms does not mean that that fear rises to the level of a first.
And see, this is the idiotic thing about a lot of this, right? Is people would be concealed carry. I'm damn sure that there are students on my campus that conceal carry, that have had their guns on them, but you'd never know it. Ask me how I know. Well, it's an assumption, and you know what they say about assumptions. But when your student bodies is as mixed as what ours is, where you've got a bunch of veterans and you've got a very mixed campus, I'm 100% sure. I'm also pretty sure that there are teachers that carry on campus. If people are concealed carrying, how does that chill free speech? One, an open carry shouldn't chill free speech. In any rational society, it should lead to people being a fuckload more polite. But there's no way it should chill speech. It's idiotic. And then it also points to just how fucking weak people have become. But that's a whole nother sideline we could go down right now. Oh yeah. I'm always going to be an ass. That's what can I say? That's why I don't mind assuming. Unless I'm wrong, then it sucks. Anyway, it's getting about that time, guys. So we're gonna listen to something together, and hopefully this won't get me a strike. But we're gonna listen to this. Maybe they'll leave me alone. We're gonna find out. And like I said, when I get to the house later on tonight, I'm gonna more than likely crank up another stream and get into more of this absolute horse shit. Because it's just, man, it don't stop. But anyway. And for those of you who don't know the song Because I Got High, this is the new one. Everybody should know that song already.
Hey, yo, Hunter. Roll up another one of them congressional blunts, brother. He wasn't gonna show all them dick pics, but Hunter got high.
Way to live life. Good job, wow.
Hunter got high. Hunter got high. He wasn't gonna mess with the hoes, but Hunter got high. He was gonna take them off.
Kind of immediately when I start playing that, my signal starts dropping out more. But anyway, I'm gonna end it here anyway. I got to get out of here, go pick the kiddos up, then I'll come back and see what we can crank up. But if you haven't listened to it yet, go look up Hunter Got High, because it is rapidly becoming my favorite song. Anyway, you guys take them easy. Let me get out of here. I'm gonna go pick up kiddos. I got a couple other things I got to square away. And then hopefully we'll crank up something tonight and run it for a little while. So, as always, you perks be cool. Keep that thing on you at all times. Now I got to put it back on, but that's okay. Be safe. Have a good evening. Good afternoon, guys. Get off work. We'll hang out again in a little bit, man. Love you guys. You guys be cool. We'll catch up on some more of this sheer insanity later. Later.